Well, it wouldn't be on Monday if I didn't have to re-record and have camera troubles, but nonetheless, I want to talk about a very important lesson that Jurassic World's dunking on the Star Wars story can teach us. It's important that we keep in mind that most of us are still Star Wars fans, and we want the franchise to thrive. If the franchise doesn't make money, we don't get the movies we love, and it's a give and take relationship. But there's a lot to be learned from the movie industry in and of itself. Now, this weekend, we saw some opening numbers from Jurassic World. It is fair, to be fair, Jurassic World did do much, much better in the foreign markets, but that really doesn't matter. Do you think Disney and Lucasfilm would care if Solo had made $500 million in the foreign markets? No, money's money, right? So to recap basically where Solo ended, because it's basically at the end of its run. I assume that films make 80% of their revenue in that first week. It did $202 million domestically here in the United States and $151 million in foreign markets, giving us a total of $353 million. Let's say it makes another couple million. It's going to end at maybe $360, $370 by the time it's all said and done. DVD sales, I'm sure, will be disappointing as they were on The Last Jedi. Jurassic World, according to Box Office Mojo. Now, we can argue the validity of these numbers from Box Office Mojo, but at the end of the day, they're probably both equally inaccurate and will still serve as decent numbers for comparison's sake, okay? Jurassic World, which has been out in the United States for just this weekend, has done $150 million in the domestic market. I would expect it to make another maybe 100 in the coming 3 weeks, but again, most of the money is usually made in that opening weekend, and $561 million in foreign markets, giving it a total of $711 million total, easily going to pass the $1 billion threshold, given how strong it's doing in foreign markets, although it did come out earlier there. Solo, again, $353. Now, you might say, well, they must have spent a bunch more money on Jurassic World. Well, the budget for Solo, I've heard everything from $300 to $600 million, not including the marketing costs. And this website does not report it. So interesting, right? But for Jurassic World, they do report the production budget, and it's $170 million. So it is at minimum half of what Star Wars spent, probably a third or maybe even a fourth of what Solo, A Star Wars Story spent. So to put that in perspective, Jurassic World spent a third as much and is going to make, I would say, 3 to 4 times more revenue, where Solo, again, 353, so call it 360 million compared to probably going to end up close to $1 billion on Jurassic World. So their return on investment for Jurassic World is going to be 5 to 1. Very strong in my world. I'm a digital marketing agency. A 5 to 1 ROAS, as we call it, return on advertising spend, is very strong. Solo lost money. It definitely lost money. Hundreds of millions of dollars Solo lost. Now, this doesn't include merchandising, but I would guess the Solo merch and the Jurassic World merch, let's just call that a wash. Now, you might be asking, well, was Jurassic Park just significantly, that much better? Was Jurassic World, that much better at the box office? Or, according to critics, was it critically acclaimed? So if we look back at where Solo, A Star Wars Story ended, 65% of the audience enjoyed it. 71% of the hack shill critics enjoyed it. Okay? So given Jurassic World's gigantic success, it's fair to say that it must have been enjoyed by all. Oops, it wasn't. Critics hated it. It actually scored rotten, right? It has a rotten score. That tells you everything you need to know about critics, right? Because at the end of the day, what does it matter if critics like a film if you like it? I mean, Super Troopers was universally panned, but I love that film. And people make films for people to enjoy. And at the end of the day, the film industry makes films to make money, right? I mean, they're not in this to do charity for us, the viewers. 50%. So it was a rotten score, and the audience, 61%. So by all measurable statistics, it spent a third as much. People liked it less, and it absolutely dunked on the Star Wars release just a few weeks later. Now, there's an interesting quote I want to share with you by the director of Jurassic World, and that is, "The new trilogy is built for a new generation, but not at the expense of the fandom. Without them, we're nothing." Colin Trevorrow. Now, I was at the movie theater during the midnight release for Jurassic World, and there were a lot of old school Jurassic Park shirts. Like, I saw guys and girls wearing Jurassic Park shirts that were definitely many years old. Now, I guess nowadays you can buy that kind of crap pre-aged and stuff like that, but there is a fandom for the Jurassic Park series. Is it as big as the Solo or Star Wars fandom? I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess it's significantly less. But, you know, what happened to that narrative? Remember the narrative when Solo bombed? You saw these articles, the death of the male lead, the toxic male lead, all this stuff, right? Well, Jurassic World had a male lead, and it's going to do $1 billion. And I guarantee you Disney would trade paychecks any day of the week for that. Now, why is this, do you think? We've established that, at least from a fair playing field, Jurassic World spent significantly less. The fans liked it significantly less. And yet, 5 times as many people went and saw it. Let me ask you, how many articles did you see get released about pansexual dinosaurs? How many articles did you see released about the toxic Jurassic fandom? I mean, if I just put like toxic male lead Star Wars into the Googler, look at all these articles. Toxic masculinity is the true villain of Star Wars. Star Wars fandom has turned to the dark side. Why are some Star Wars fans so toxic? Why are some Star Wars fans can be so toxic? Star Wars toxic fan base may have driven The Last Jedi. How to fix the toxic Kelly Marie Tran, how the Star Wars fandom became so toxic. I mean, this was a coordinated attack on the fandom that if you watch this channel, if you watch other channels that are reporting on this sort of thing, you knew it was coming. We showed you. In fact, I have videos where I predicted that it would happen after Solo bombed, that the media would turn on the fandom. This is what always happens. You don't see a lot of toxic Star Wars fandoms, a lot of articles about toxic male leads in Jurassic Park. Now, we did see some mini controversy about the pay gap between the lead actor in Jurassic World and his female counterpart. But again, nobody was going to see Jurassic World for that girl. It's if you go on Twitter, it's Chris Pratt and that chick. She doesn't have the clout. She doesn't have the draw. I'm not saying she's not a good actor. She might be great. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to see Jurassic World for her scenes. They're just not. At least in comparison to Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt right now is universally loved. He is absolutely crushing it. Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously Jurassic World. He's like a modern day. He's the modern day mega movie star that we haven't seen since Harrison Ford, or honestly, you go to like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Chuck Norris in the 90s. Chris Pratt is that dude. He's like Seagal in the 90s. I mean, he's not a karate chopping guy. He's a bit of a, kind of a goofball new male, but he's the modern day action hero. And it really bothers the media that that's the case, because they cast Aaron Third Reich in Solo, and then they blamed his maleness for its failure. But you don't see a lot of articles about how Chris Pratt, the toxic male, is ruining Jurassic World, because it's raking in the cash. The shill media doesn't need to spin that narrative. You won't see a lot of people run off social media from the Jurassic World. You won't see a lot of articles about people shutting their Instagrams. And believe me, in the movie, there are some new soy characters. There are definitely some social justice plot lines kind of crowbarred in. The movie was mediocre, in my opinion. But it's just my opinion. It's just one person's opinion. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, also great. I grew up in an era. The thing is, I'm old enough to remember seeing Jurassic Park in the movie theater and thinking it was like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. So I'm always going to have a special spot for the Jurassic World in my heart. Just like Ghostbusters. I saw that in the theater. So when it got butt-fucked a few years ago, it especially bothered me. You may have film franchises, like many of you with Star Wars, right? Many of you saw the original trilogy in the theater. Many of you, it's your first memory of a film you saw. A lot of people, it's like the first tape VHS they ever saw. It was the first movie, in my generation, it was the first movie their parents ever let them see. So imprinted on a lot of people in that way. Jurassic Park did. That epic scene where she's like holding the glass against the T-Rex. I mean, that is, or the goat, when they have to feed the goat to him. Where's the goat? Where's the goat? Like, that is, you can't erase that unless you try, right? This is what shill media did to a big chunk of the Star Wars fandom. When the movies failed, they attacked the fans. And then they separated us. They to divide and conquer, right? You're good and you're bad. It's the bad fans, the baddies, that they're the reason that this movie failed. And you're good. You're good. You enjoyed Lando having sex with robots. You're good. You're good. When you read article after article after article after article after article after article about how you're the problem with a film, eventually you get woke. You're like, no. This movie sucked, and I'm not going to see the next one. I think, to be honest, Solo was more about the backlash from The Last Jedi than the movie itself being bad. It was a fine movie, just like Jurassic World was a fine movie. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But remember, the original Jurassic World was awesome, in my opinion. Okay? And it broke every record out there in terms of box office numbers for opening weekend. That tells you that when you have a fandom that loves something and you don't go out of your way to shit on them, you can have box office gold. Learn this lesson, Lucasfilm and Disney. Do you want to be the Ghostbusters reboot, or do you want to be Jurassic World? The choice is yours. Get your shill media under control.